Guys, it's Vanity Dazzle back at it again with another feature card Buddy Fight deck profile. So, like I said before in the last few ones, I'm sorry for being gone so long, but now we're back at it, and I'm back in the game. So let's go ahead and get started. This time is my Dragon World deck, back with my Dradiety deck, version 2 or 3. I'm not even sure where I am at this anymore. My buddy's Awakened Deity Gargantua Dragon. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and go to the picture. Forgot to say that. So what he does, if you don't remember, 7k power, 4k defense, critical of 2, trial deck card. You may use him with all flags. He's one of the original Gargas. G-Evo, you know, that does at the end of the battle, that it attacked, or at the end of the battle that it was involved in, whether it was attacked or it did attack. Call up to one Drag God from your hand without paying its call cost, and then penetrate. And the Drag God has to be called on top of him. So, useful. It gets more attacks. No size zeros. 2 copies of Guard Dog in the Sunlight Forest. 4k power, 1k defense, critical of 1. When this card attacks, if you have another Deity Dragon Tribe on your field, you gain 2 life. So as you can see, this is probably the deck that focuses on gaining life, and it kind of is, and it kind of isn't. But it does end up giving you enough life, and it does end up getting the game to stall longer until I can actually get stuff I need. And when I'm playing against Dragon Blood, like the deck I showed you before, then you know why I run him. And the next few cards. In fact, you know why I would run all size 1s. 2 copies of Guardbird, Taking It Easy. 3k power, 3k defense, critical of 1. Counteract if you have a drag on, if you call it from your hand. Can be used as defensive, can be just be used as offensive for an extra attack. In fact, before I got my customizations where I just had Guardbird, I won by pushing my opponent with Astral Dragons down to 4 and then impacting them. So if it wasn't for Guardbird, I would have actually lost. And when this card is destroyed, put the top card of your deck into your gauge, you gain a life. This is not one. The counteract is not once per turn. Either is the death card ability, but it's extra gauge, extra life, and it can be used as technically 2 nulls, so useful. Finally, 2 copies of what is the best fucking cards ever, and if I had 2 more, I would run them. Taoke is the best Garcat. If you run any deck that revolves around healing and it's in Dragon World, you better fucking run Garcat, otherwise you are really dumb. 5k power, 1k defense, critical of 1. When you gain life by any means, Buddy Call, Effect, or yeah, those 2 basically, charge 1 gauge, you gain a life, and then if you have a drag on your field, you draw 1 once per turn effect, otherwise you would actually deck out from this regardless. Because charging gauge and instantly gaining life, you would have infinite gauge and infinite life, but you would also have to have infinite deck cards to not deck out, which is physically impossible. So unless you can find me the infinite loop for this, that ain't gonna happen. It's gonna be a once per turn. Next up is now onto our size 2s, 1 copy of Gargantua Dragon Crush mode, 8k power, 6k defense, critical of 3, pay 2 gauge, put top card in soul, but you're never going to call it like that, because of G-Evo. When this card enters the field, destroy a monster in the opponent's field, and then if it enters by G-Evo, instead of destroying a monster, you destroy a card, so its range reaches to set spells and items as well, but it still sucks because it says the instead part, which is why I say Cyclone mode is way fucking better than that shit, even though the gauge cost is 1 gauge higher, but I don't give a shit. 3 copies of Gargantua Dragon Slash mode. The only Garga that is 2 gauge and does not get soul, which I question. I guess when it says Soul Guard, they're expecting you not to hard call it and G-Evo into it. It has Penetrating Soul Guard, 10k power, 5k defense, critical 3. When it enters the field, it gets double attack, and then if entered by G-Evo, you stand a DD Dragon Trap item, getting you more attacks. But I'm pretty sure the Penetrate was just there for the fact of it having something useful after it enters for the turn after it enters the field. 3 copies of Gargantua Dragon Recover mode. The other reason why I run Garcat. 6k power, 7k defense, critical of 3. Pay 2 gauge, tuck card in a soul. When this card enters the field, you gain a life. Then if entered by G-Evo, you gain another 2, so you can gain a max of 3. Move and soul guard. So when you G-Evo into it and you have Garcat, you gain a total of 4 life, charge 1 gauge, and then draw 1 card. Useful. And can also act as defensive. 3 copies of Daybreak Roar Gargantua Dragon. 6k power, 2 crit, 5k defense. You may use this card with all flags, pay a gauge, and put the top card deck into the soul. When this card attacks, if you have another Deity Dragon Tribe on your field, you may draw 1, and then G-Evo, y'all know what that does. It also has a move in Solo Guard. It's like my own version of Deity Gargantua Dragon and Deity G-Evo, just that its stats are weaker and are bad, and also the draw effect only works when it attacks and not as Deity G-Evo, but otherwise it's pretty good. 4 copies of Gargantua Dragon Original. 7k power, 4k defense, critical of 2. You all know what he does. You can use it with all flags. The first Garga that's ever released. Pay gauge, top guard, and a soul. G-Evo, he has double attack and soul guard, so he's useful. Then on to, well, I think it's our last monster. Yes, it's our last monster, and we all know who it's going to be. It's 4 copies of my buddy, Awakened Deity, Gargantua Dragon. Now into our spells. 4 copies of Flasher Deity Dragon. Give me a second. You may only cast a card if you have a drag on your field. Pay a gauge. Destroy a monster in the opponent's field, and if you do, you gain life equal to that card's size. I only have 1 copy. I think I may have said 4 on accident or something like that. I have 1 copy. It's useful. It can destroy a set, especially since it's a counter, so you can do it during your opponent's turn as they're attacking you, and it can combo with Guard Cap for like another 4 life if you destroy a size 3. So useful. 2 copies of Gar Hiring. It's not a counter, and you gain a life for each DD Dragon Tribe monster on your field. Then if you have a Dragod, you draw 1, you can only cast a card once per turn. But otherwise, this is pretty useful. You can gain a max of 3 life, but in this deck, you're most likely going to gain 2 life, 1 from the Dragon and 1 from Garcat, hopefully. You draw 1, and then skill of Garcat, you gain another life, you charge another gauge, and then you draw 1 again. So fuck it. 3 copies of Green Dragon Shield. You all know what this does. The OG Dragon Shield, boys. The first Dragon Shield ever created. You may only cast a card during the attack on the opponent's turn, and if you do not have a monster in the center. Counter, no fight attack, gain a life. The OG Green Dragon Shield. Dragon Shields have evolved since the time of Green. Next up, 4 copies of Garland's Shield. You may only cast a card during attack on the opponent's turn, pay a life, nullify the attack, and then put up to 1 card from your drop zone to the soul of a DD Dragon Tribe on your field. So you can use this card even if you don't have a DD Dragon Tribe on your field, if I understand that correctly, but you get a soul into 1 if you have a DD Dragon Tribe. I think that's how it works. Someone hit me up in the comments if I'm wrong about that, or like tell me if I'm right, because I'm confused on that one. 4 copies of Guard Pressure. You may only cast a card during an attack on the opponent's turn, and if you have an item equipped. Counter, nullify the attack, and rest a size 1 or less on the opponent's field. I always thought this would be a Dimension Dragon card, because think about it. Nullifying and resting works for Dimension Dragons, because they want to stop for Lost World, so I always thought this was like a Lost World basic card, but actually it's not, for some reason. I mean, you can use it in the Lost World, I just prefer not to. 4 copies of DD Green Dragon Shield Yuga Art. You may only cast a card during attack on the opponent's turn, and if you have no monsters on your center, and you have a DD Dragon Tribe on your field. Doesn't matter if it's an item or set spell, really doesn't matter. Counter, nullify the attack, you gain 3 life. Useful, it can be like 2 nulls in 1, because you nullify the attack, and most cards ever have 2 crit, like the average is 2 crit, so 2 nulls, and then sometimes it will most likely be 1 crit, so maybe 3 nulls in 1 actually, so that's useful. 4 copies of the best fucking shield ever. Deity Dragon Sword, Gardius. This, if you guys know, my original Ultimate deck, Gardius was the best card and my only item that I ever ran in it. It was like God's Savior, and this was like my Excalibur. But it was passed down after I got my new item from my Ultimate deck. It was passed down to my Extra Deity deck. So, if you guys don't remember what Gardius does, the legendary Excalibur, 6k... Well, the Excalibur for Dradiety. I got a new fucking Excalibur for Ultimate. It has 6k power, 2 crit, pay gauge to equip it. When a Drag God monster on your field attacks, destroy a monster in the opponent's field. If you do, burn your opponent 1. I one turned a Dremetal player because he had a monster in my oppressed area. I had a Garga, and I had this equipped. What ended up happening is I attacked with Garga, right? What he ended up doing... Well, this was in my Ultimate deck, by the way. So what he ended up doing is... He cast HQ defense to defend Argento. Skill of Gardius, though, after I attacked with Garga, still burn 1 damage. And then I just kept attacking with Gargas by GLing over and over and over again. And because he kept attacking, I just kept making that oppressed card suffer. And because it did technically die, it just kept reviving. I kept burning him 1 damage. So, his HQ defense, the best null in fucking Dremetal, was his downfall. Fuck yeah. And then finally, our impacts. 4 copies of Garga Ray Punisher. You may only cast this card during an attack. You may only cast a card if your opponent's at 4 life or less. Neither you or your opponent has a center, and if you have a DD Dragon Tribe on your field, whether it's the item, monster, or whatever, or set spell. Pay 3 gauge. Deal 4 damage to your opponent. This damage cannot be reduced. Fuck yeah, it's just 4 damage, can't be reduced. It can only be nullified by stuff like Vanity Salt and Impact Nullifiers and Impact Revival cards. So, fuck yeah. So that was the deck. Hope you guys enjoy. Like I said before, I'm sorry for being away for a long time, but now I'm back in. So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and join to the Patreon. And I'll see you all in the next one. Don't forget to raise your flag. Can you pull a Buddy Rare card?